Servus Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. The political establishment in Germany flipped in record time during the last 2 weeks, I think it was. And the difference is, of course, back then, and I'm talking about September, for example, it was before the elections, and now it is after the elections. That is, of course, no surprise, and a lot of people, including me, have obviously expected exactly that to happen. However, this time it is noteworthy how fast they flipped. I am, of course, talking about the mandatory medical procedure that they want to introduce to force it on people against their will. In September, they said, oh, please get the jab. You help Germany with that. You help society. You protect yourself and others. Please, please do it. Everyone should do it. And now they say, well, you have to take it even if you don't want to. So today I want to briefly summarize what's new in Germany, what they decided, and I want to emphasize how especially the politicians that will form our new government, including our designated chancellor Olaf Scholz, how they flipped just right after the elections. I want to emphasize that he is not even elected chancellor already. There is no new government yet, and they already flipped on what they said before the elections. And that is a record in my recollection at least. They want to have a vote in our parliament very soon, and they say that they want to introduce such a mandate until February or even sooner. And in addition to that, and that might be the farewell present from our dear Chancellor Angela Merkel, they are once again locking up the people who refuse this medical treatment from the pharmaceutical companies and from our government. All those people with pure untarnished bodies are no longer allowed to go out after hours, and we have 2G rules pretty much everywhere now. That means you can only enter stores where you can get daily necessities like groceries or something like that, or maybe drugstores. But you're not allowed in other stores like furniture, clothes, shoes, electronics, entertainment, etc. Only daily necessities like food. And even a negative test will not be accepted. Which is of course funny because the other people who took that medical treatment, they can still spread the disease and they don't have to show a test. That's very smart actually. And of course there will also be strict contact bans once again. But you can guess it already, only for those people who didn't get the pharmaceutical procedure done. The other people can of course meet and they can party and they can do mostly whatever they like. But even for private gatherings, if there is only one person with a clean body, then these rules apply. That is, of course, clearly an attempt to divide the population further and to ostracize those who reject the blessings of the pharmaceutical industry. Untreated people are also not allowed to visit any cultural events, so no theater, no cinema, and no football games and such things. So what do we have then? You cannot meet people publicly or privately, and you only can buy essential goods like groceries. And then they say, well, don't worry, in a couple of months you have to take the jab against your will anyway. But as I said before, the subscription model is already included here. That means I think they said 6 months before, now they say 9 months. After 9 months you lose your entrance ticket to society and you become a pariah again, or you go to jail or pay a fine or something. So you can already see what they envision is pretty much what the Austrians are trying to do at the moment, or I should say the Austrian government, just as I said, in Germany, they're trying to do the very same thing now. And it is just very interesting when you have a longer memory. I'm not too old, I'm not a boomer, I'm a Gen Xer, but still, I remember what they said in the 90s, and even in the 90s, they talked about what they said in the 80s when I was just too young. But still, I have, when it comes to politics, a pretty long memory for German politics at least. So I know that it is very usual that politicians say one thing before the elections and another after the elections. Of course I know that, and I know from my own lifetime so many examples for that. But this time I think it is still a little different because, as I said before, he is not even elected chancellor yet. Mr. Olaf Scholz, of course, the Warburg Chancellor, as he might be known one day, in September, when he still needed the votes of very mentally weak people, he said, we don't need a mandate, we don't need to force people because there are so many good arguments for doing this. People will just do it on their own. And then there are also governors of German states like Mr. Söder from Bavaria, who said that our liberal way of life is in contradiction to a forced injection. But now he says we have to do it. So that means we don't have a liberal society anymore. Whoop-de-doo. But these are just words anyway, of course. But then the biggest surprise for some people, especially for their voters, is that even the Liberal Party flipped now. Before the elections, I can still remember that especially Mr. Kubicki from the Liberal Party, but also Mr. Lindner, their front runner or poster boy, he said that that is not the way to go. And now he said that he is in favor of such a mandate. Now you have to know that the Liberal Party criticized the government of Angela Merkel relentlessly in some cases for their restrictions and for their lockdowns and for this and that. And they almost convincingly played the role of, well, of the Liberal Party, who doesn't want these totalitarian measures and who rejects that because we are a free society. And some people actually were dumb enough to believe that. And I think I mentioned it in many videos, but I said it in the past, in previous years even. I said it time and time again, don't trust this party. A lot of things they say sound good or they look good on paper, and yes, when you take these isolated statements that they sometimes make, yeah, well, I would probably agree to a lot of them, but you have to take it in the right context, and the context is that it is the FDP, it is the Liberal Party of Germany who says those things, and they have a impressive track record of always promising people or campaigning with these liberal slogans, or that we should decrease the tax rate and that people should have more money available at the end of the month. You know, government spending is out of control. We want a small government. Sometimes they even said things that were critical of migration policies. But of course, they always flip on that. Always. And once again, they're not even in government yet, and they already flipped once again. And I have heard a couple of voices from Germany where some of their voters now feel betrayed or something, and they're not even first-year voters. I mean, they're maybe, I don't know, beginning of their 30s or something, so they should have witnessed them breaking their promises at least 2 times already during their active voter career. So that shouldn't be news to them. I'm really surprised at how anybody can be surprised about that, quite frankly. They must have been living under a rock, and this is precisely what right-wingers were telling them all the time. So once again, the only party that is against all that is the AfD. They were against it before the election, and they are against it after the election. So anyway, that is what's going on in Germany, like I predicted or like I have announced already. There you have it. There is at least some news. This time they flipped before they were even in government. And Mr. Scholz is not even elected by parliament yet. But what else would you expect from such a completely sane-looking person such as this, huh? Well, I think we're in for a rough ride this winter. Servus, Kameraden.